Hi, I'm Jen. I paint abstract portraits, and today I'm painting Esther. Esther? Hi.
Hi.
Whenever you're ready, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, well, I'm Esther, and I guess at the moment I'm technically unemployed, but I'm doing all kinds of other things in my spare time. So one of the things that I do is I am a Reiki practitioner. So whether or not you believe in Reiki, I've already infused this with Reiki. I am a hobby baker. I am actually a published author because I published my book. It's on Amazon KDP. It is called Patiently ... Impatiently because I'm very patient. Impatiently. That's the title. And what else? I'm a content creator. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I love to write. I love to read. I don't practice enough yoga, but I should. I believe in angel numbers, and it's now 3:33, which I just saw on the clock behind us. So that's amazing. So that makes me feel good about this. And what else? My dream is to be a public speaker one day.
Ooh.
To be a paid public speaker and like just kind of like talk to people and be able to share that love that I shared with Jenny over the phone with other people in person. And I can tell you more about that, how that dream got started.
Yes.
And what else?
That's all, so much amazing stuff.
Oh yeah, and if you don't watch any further than this, let me tell you the one thing that I always say to people is, which we're so lucky that everything always works out for us, even when it comes to being 3:33 on the clock, and Jenny saying that I have so much to talk about, and that I am so glad that you exist, and I am proud of you, and I love you. I am so glad you exist. I am proud of you. I love you. I hope you never ever forget that somebody smiled today because of you, because you are enough. You always have been, and you always will be. Period. I do want you to watch more, but just in case you have to pause or you haven't heard it today, that's the message for right now. And I'll tell you again later because I don't think anyone can be told enough.
Oh,
right?
That's nice. Yeah. Oh, very cool. And you also just filmed a pilot, didn't you?
I was going to tell you about that. I was going to film the pilot.
Yeah.
The pilot did not end up happening.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, it did not. I think though the reason it didn't end up happening is because it's not the right timing yet.
Okay.
And so if anything I've learned is, okay, a couple things is, one, I plan, God laughs.
Yes.
And two, I need to learn the lesson better of I don't chase, I attract. So when the time comes for me to host that show, they'll come to me and ask me, and not me having to chase down, like, you know, all these different things, and it'll be easier.
Okay.
So I'll just go with that.
Okay.
And I changed the concept of the show.
Okay.
So
do you want to share?
The concept of the show is, I think what it was originally was going to be barefoot in the kitchen, because like I have shoes on now, but like I don't cook with shoes on. Like,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's just going to be like, hey, and I don't, what's it called? I'm not a fancy chef. I don't have like, you know, fancy knives or whatever. I do have great ideas for like cookware and stuff to make everyone's life a little bit easier, because that's what I'm about.
Uh-huh.
But then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, that's nice. But I think the better thing is that there's a lot of kids that grew up and they're like latchkey kids. And I think there's more, and those latchkey kids are now becoming adults. And those latchkey kids and adults don't know how to cook. Right? And like everyone says, oh yeah, we don't know how to cook. But like, I was like, well, what if we could make it like really easy so that if kids can do it,
Yeah.
make a show that like a cooking show, so that if kids can do it, so can you.
Yeah.
And so like maybe like a paring knife, you know, because like, you know, but they put kids in the kitchen, they put them with like really like simple things.
Right.
So like cut up vegetables in the food, like if you're gonna cut up onions, we'll put them in the food processor. Or they have those like they have this like thing you can put like julienne's vegetables for you, and you just like turn the handle.
Oh my gosh, those look amazing.
Those look so great. And so I'm like, okay, well, if I could just do the vegetables that way, And then like, you know, like now you can make grilled cheese sandwiches in the toaster with like these special bags. And I'm like, oh, you can make sandwiches like that. Or if everything was made in the air fryer, because then you don't have to turn on the oven and kids can actually do that.
That's neat.
So I changed the concept to that because I think that that's a better idea. Because people are like, I can't cook. And I'm like, you can't. I'm like, well, if these kids can, so can you. So that's the, because, you know, like everything I told you about is like, I'm like, really? I don't want to be in the kitchen. Nobody does. Except for chefs, and good for them. Hooray. But like, that's not what I want to do. Like, I don't want to, like, all my recipes that involve cooking really are like me being in the kitchen as little as possible. You know, like roasting vegetables in the oven. You're like, oh, how do you roast your vegetables in the oven? I'm like, I bring them home, I wrap them in foil, I line the tray, I wrap them. I don't even wash them because 425 kills everything. And I just leave everything in the oven. And leave it overnight because it's not chicken. You're not going to die if the vegetables stay in there overnight.
That's true.
So that's what all my recipes are. And I was like, well, why can't I do that and make that for kids? So then the parents, if the parents want kids to eat vegetables, they're like, well, I can turn the oven on at night, which is like the kids can't reach or whatever. Mm-hmm. But actually, if the kid wanted to, they could do it too because nothing involves like touching the oven. Like while it's still hot, everything is cooled down and you don't have to worry about it.
That's nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, like, if you buy cooked beets at the store, they're like $5 a piece.
Right.
But if you do it my way, you can buy 5 beets and roast them at home yourself.
Right.
And you'll eat a lot more beets because it costs you $5 instead of $25. So, and my way is bring them home from the store, line the tray, like an hour before you go to sleep, put them wrap them all in foil, don't wash them. Little dirt never hurt anybody. And then just put them in the oven, turn the timer on for an hour and turn the oven on for an hour, like 425, 450, up to you. 425, let's just say. And then, well, beets, maybe like 450 because they're bigger. So 450, an hour. And when the hour is over, walk over, turn off the oven, turn off the timer, and you can go to sleep. And then when you wake up the next morning, everything is cooled down. You get to keep all your fingers. It doesn't look like a murder scene everywhere because of the paper towels that you had to use to peel the beets. And then you go and you can peel 5 beets in like a minute. And then you just throw everything away. No dishes. Except that I'm thinking about doing parchment paper instead of foil.
Yeah.
Only because I don't know how I feel about foil touching my food all night. But that's not a big deal. But the parchment paper is fine too, you know? And so, and I've seen some parchment paper on Amazon that has these really cool imprints on it. And you could like imprint your vegetable.
Oh, neat.
Like with patterns, because I did it with a baguette one time.
And so, parchment paper can hang out in the oven?
I think so.
Oh yeah. Because you can like line something with, Because
I mean, I could line the tray with aluminum, and then like if I wanted to, because that's really the whole thing is like, so I'll line the tray with aluminum, and it's wrapped in parchment paper, you know, maybe a rubber band to hold it together, because I don't know if it's as crumbly as like holds together like, what's it called? Foil.
Yeah.
But like, still simple. So that's what I was like, oh, why don't I just do it this way? And then I was like, I'll just call it Kitchen Kids.
There you go.
Because I thought that was cute.
Yeah. Were you a latchkey kid?
No. I was not a latchkey kid. I was actually, when we were growing up, I guess we were pretty fortunate in that at one point there was a point where my parents didn't have any money. Like we were on food stamps for a couple months, which I just found out the other day. Wow. But when we went back to having money, we had a nanny.
Wow.
And so I grew up in the valley in Texas.
Like Rio Grande Valley?
Yeah, in the Rio Grande Valley. So I grew up in Brownsville, Texas. And in Brownsville, back in the late 80s, early 90s, everybody had a maid. Like, that's just part of, like, you know, whatever. My mom said that when we first got her, like, she's a toy, but like an object. But it was like $40.
Like a session?
No, It was like $40. I guess we only had her in the beginning for like a little, or I don't know how. I just remember it was $40,
Okay.
and at the end, my mom was paying her $100.
Wow.
So I guess that was $40 a week in the beginning, and then it switched to $100.
Wow.
And she stayed with us from Tuesday through Saturday. She came Tuesday
Wow.
when we were at school, and came home, and she left Saturday at like 6:00. Her name's Mina Perez, and I'm looking for her. So if you want to help me find her, that'd be really great.
Okay. And you're looking for?
Because she's like my second mom, you know?
And,
She's
okay.
actually, I think she's better than my mom. But like, she like took care of us. She made, growing up, like she was actually Mexican, and I lived on the border. And when I moved this year in 2023, I actually finally figured out why I'm so picky about Mexican food. Duh. You know what I mean? Because like,
Yeah.
I grew up in the Valley, and then when I moved to Houston in '93, I was like, the Mexican food here sucks.
Wow.
And Houston's like not known for Mexican food now, but like back then, if you're coming from the Valley, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I went to the Valley back in 2019
Yeah.
for a funeral.
Okay.
And we went to this restaurant, and my sister, my brother, and we got a fajita platter. And they didn't ask, do you want guacamole? It was just like on the table, right? And they gave us so much guac. Like literally, they gave us so much guac at the end that there was leftover.
Wow.
Like leftover guac, and not like a little leftover, like a lot. Like I ate it by the spoonful. I think I had like 3
Wow.
spoonfuls of it. That's a lot of guac.
That is a lot of guac.
It like comes out, and I'm like, damn, that's a lot, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, this is the way that it's supposed to be. So I grew up eating like Mexican food made by a Mexican person in my house. And so like I go to restaurants, and I'm like, this sucks.
I hear that. Yeah. I get
But
that.
so in that I was lucky in that, and then when we moved away from the Valley, my mom actually stayed at home, but like my maid cooked for us, all the time. So when we moved to the Valley, moved to Houston, I think my mom cooked.
Okay.
She wasn't as good a cook as my maid. I'm just going to be honest on that. My mom was smart enough to know that I can't really, so I'm going to hire somebody, and
There
that's
you
what
go.
my maid did. But she was like our nanny. She made sure we did homework, and she loved us, and that's like, that's really all you need. But like, I was fortunate that I grew up that way,
Yeah.
but not everybody gets to grow up that way.
Right.
Where they're like, you had a maid? How rich were you? I'm like, I lived in the Valley. Everybody had a maid. But then I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, you grew up in the rich part of the Valley. And I was like, is that a thing? I don't think so. But I think my parents, when we moved out of the Valley, the rent at my parents' house that we lived in was $400 a month. So if your rent's $400 a month, you can afford to pay for a maid.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
Were your folks also healers?
No.
No.
My dad is.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess now that you think about it, now that you mention it, my dad is a healer. He does acupuncture, so I've been getting acupuncture since I was a kid.
Wow.
And he's done cupping on me. And my mom's a nurse,
Okay.
but I never got any of her healing. Like, I remember going to school. Like, I remember being in 2nd grade, and my brother had just had the chicken pox, and he got to stay home.
Okay.
And my mom made me go to school. So I never think of her as even though she's until you just said it now, I'm like, I guess you're right. My mom is a healer, but I just don't think, I don't think of her as that. But maybe because we
Sure.
have such a tumultuous relationship, so I don't think of her as a healer.
Okay.
And plus, she right now she works in the ICU,
Okay.
and famously, and everyone will tell you this, that works in the ICU, has been a patient in the ICU, the running joke in the ICU unit is once you start talking, you go down to regular care because you don't need to be in ICU anymore.
Okay.
Because they kick the patients out.
Right.
Once you start talking, you don't need to be here anymore. Bye.
Wow.
So, I always thought, so yeah, but yeah, you're like, is your mom a healer? I'm like, I guess she is.
That's not your experience of her?
No, but to other people, she is, because I know she's been an OR nurse.
Wow.
When I was born, she was an OR nurse. And then she was working at Bentham Hospital for a little bit. in the neuro ICU in Houston, and that's the neurological, not the NICU.
Wow.
And then now she's just in the ICU. But when she was in the neuro ICU, I remember I was at work one day and she called me like 5 times in a row. I'm like, what? Like, what's this emergency?
Yeah.
Must be like something really important. And she's like, do you wear a seatbelt? I'm like, yes, Mom, I wear my seatbelt to go to the mailbox. Goodbye. But she must have had, like, you know, like a motorcycle patient or somebody come in that wasn't wearing their seatbelt.
Right.
And she's like, do you wear yours? I'm like, all the time. Because I've noticed that every time I don't, something happens. Or not that I don't, but it's normally automatic. But if I think about it that day and I'm like, should I wear my seatbelt? I'm like, I'm just going to wear it just because.
Yeah.
And there'll be like a little minor accident.
Oh, wow.
So I just was like, I just wear it all the time now.
Wow.
Because I noticed that a couple times and I was like, I'm just going to stop questioning whether or not I should wear my seatbelt.
Yeah. Four or 5 sentences ago, you used the phrase like of him quoting him as saying, "You got me the car I wanted." Did you buy it for him?
Oh no. So Toyota Siennas at the time were like super highly allocated.
Okay.
And it was very hard to get people one.
Okay.
So people would be like, I want a Sienna. And I'm like, okay, well, give me a deposit and I'll see you in a year. Because it was like, it's not that, because there was like a hybrid and they're all-wheel drive. And so they're not really coming along. But every now, so people would already have their name on a car.
Okay.
And they were having reservations. And then something would happen and they would like back out of the deal. And then now we have a Sienna available. Start calling all your customers that want a Sienna.
Okay.
And see who's going to be down here the fastest. And I called mine and I was like, hey. And he's like, I'll be there in 45 minutes. And I was like, sold the car.
Wow. And so do you work with car dealerships or like how did you facilitate that?
I sold cars.
Okay.
Yeah, I sold cars. So it's like on all the jobs, many jobs that I've done over the years. Selling cars was one of them.
That's wild. I love that. I haven't met too many people who do that.
You know what's funny is when I was selling cars, people would come in and I guess like my attitude and my perspective is like refreshing to them.
Uh-huh.
And I think the funniest thing that anyone ever told me was they're like, you know, Esther, we go to so many car dealerships and we deal with so many old white men. And I'm like, uh-huh. And they would say, we're so glad you're not one. I'm like, me too. And I'm like, you know, but like when I was selling cars, I always wanted to be success to me was not based on how many cars I sold that day, because at the time there were shortages.
Okay.
So if I base my success based on how many cars I sold that day, then I'm not successful.
Okay.
So my success was based upon, was I the salesperson I would want to buy from today? And if I was that person, then I consider my day a success.
Okay.
So like my perspective was, I do for my customers what I would want them to do for me if they were in my job. So I'm like, okay, this is what you do. Because like, honestly, most people don't buy a car every day. They don't buy a car every year. Maybe every 3 years. But most people buy a car like every 3 years at most. There's a couple people who are always buying cars, and that's, you know, that's their thing.
Yeah.
But for most people, they're not buying cars very often. So they don't remember, like, they don't know the tips and the tricks and things like that.
Right.
So I would tell them everything that I knew. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see. What are you going to do? Okay, well, you need this. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's figure out how much you're going to get for your car. You know, like, what kind of car do you want? This car has this warranty, et cetera, et cetera. And I would always make them drive. If they only came in with one car that they wanted, I would only make them drive one. However, if they didn't, I would try to make them drive a few.
Okay.
Because you got to get a feel for it. And actually, when I got my car, my first car that I actually bought and picked out a couple of years ago, in 2015, the sales guy made me drive 3 cars.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, because he was like, I went in and I test drove 2 cars. And he's like, all right, so what's your third car? And I'm like, what do you mean, what's my third car? And he goes, don't you have a third car to drive? And I was like, I don't even know what would be. what it is that I would want. And he said, okay, well, what do you want? And I was like, I can tell you what I don't want.
Sure.
And I started listing off all the brands that I didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, what about a Tiguan? And I'm like, a what? And it was like a Volkswagen Tiguan. And it came out and I was like, it's a cute little car. And then I was like, all week, you know, when you drive a car, then you see it everywhere. And I was like, saw it popping up everywhere. I was like, it's called like the reticular activating system. And so I was like, okay. And so then I just drove it. And then I went back and I drove it again. And I'm like, yep, that's the car I want.
Wow. The car that you weren't going to drive is the one you wanted?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Because I didn't, but like how it's been working out for me ever since then is I've noticed that when I pick the third option, for example, your camera is number 3.
Okay.
As I said it.
Uh-huh.
Like on Google, for example, like my nail shop that I used to go to.
Uh-huh.
I picked a nail shop on Google, and Google gives you ones that are like close by, relatively. So nail salon, I picked not the first one, and I don't pick the ads.
Okay.
But I picked the third one.
Okay.
And then I go to the third one, and I do this. I go to the third one, and now I read the third review.
Nice.
And and then I'll make my decision based upon that.
Okay.
So like, the nail salon that was the third one ended up being $10 cheaper than all the rest of them.
Huh.
And then when I was looking for a church when I lived in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I was talking to my dad. My dad's like, you should go to church, but not the Presbyterian one. And I was like, all right, well, there's like 900 religions. I'm going to go to that church. I'm going to go to the Presbyterian church. Because he said not to go to that one.
Okay.
But then I picked the third one.
Okay.
And it ended up working out well for me, you know?
Okay.
So like, if I don't know if I go to a restaurant, I'm that person, like I'll show up early and I'll look at all the food and I'll try and decide. And now I'm just like, I'm just going to look at the third. If I don't know, I'm just going to look at third item on each category and decide from there. And it works out.
Oh, wow.
So like, just like weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
Three's my magic number.
Okay.
So, like when I give Reiki to my friends, I notice that, or to people, I noticed when I give Reiki 3 times, that 3 is the magic number and it does something and it unlocks something in them.
Like the third time they get Reiki?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's especially powerful if we do it 3 days in a row.
Ah.
So if we do it 3 days in a row and they get 3 sessions, then it does something. Like one of my friends, I gave him Reiki. He lives in DC. Mm-hmm. And I gave him Reiki over Snapchat video.
Yes.
And
technology.
He fell off the ladder and like broke his wrist and like tore a ligament.
Oh my.
And I gave him Reiki 3 days in a row. And after the 3rd day, his hand didn't hurt anymore.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
so it helps with like pain management. But then if you are on the spiritual side of things, it helps unlock your spiritual gifts somehow. I don't know how this works. I just know that it does. And then, but if you're on the spiritual side of things and you have pain management issues, then you get the double bonus. But if you only have the one or the other. But like, then he went and got surgery on that Monday.
Okay.
And then I had to give him Reiki again because now he got a new pain.
Sure.
But he said after the 3rd day of Reiki, like, he didn't have pain from the surgery.
Amazing.
So he doesn't have to take like the meds and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the doctor's office like a few weeks later and he sees this lady and he's like doing this like with his wrists and stuff.
Wow.
And some lady that was there had the same surgery like a few weeks earlier and she couldn't even like go like this.
Wow.
And he's like moving his hands everywhere. And I'm like, huh. And so I was like, one day I was giving him Reiki and I noticed him like in it, like moving his hands around. And I was like, that's interesting. And then I figured out my Reiki helps unlock people's gifts.
Oh.
Which is interesting.
Okay.
But I don't know how that works. And I guess I'm like.
What was his gifts like with his hands?
I think he's a healer too.
Oh.
I think he's a healer and he just doesn't know it yet.
Fascinating.
I'll tell you about how I do Reiki. Because that seems to be like everyone's everyone's kind of like interesting thing is. So I liken it in that I call Reiki magnified prayer.
Okay.
I also call it emotional surgery.
Okay.
And I call it magnified prayer because when I pray, like we get on video chat. Well, I guess so we'll get on top. The first session is always at least 2 hours, maybe even 3, really depends.
Okay.
And the reason I say it's that long, and the subsequent sessions are shorter, but the first one is the longest because everybody comes to me with 100 pounds of baggage. Okay. And in that first session, we're going to talk because it's like therapy, but without me being like a therapist, life coach. I'm just a person that people enjoy talking to first.
Obviously.
People like talking to me and they tell me their problems and I'm like, okay. And I just listen and I hold space for them to just be whatever it is that they need to say and no judgment. And if they need a solution, then I'll come up with a solution for them.
Okay.
But if they don't, then I just listen.
Okay. And
that's what people need is someone to listen.
Right.
And so the reason we talk first is because you still came to me with 100 pounds of baggage and talking to me. Well, first of all, if I give Reiki to someone, they don't know me and I don't know them.
Okay.
And
so we already know each other too much?
No.
Okay.
Because everything is different. But most time when people come to me, they don't know who I am. They're like, okay. So I have found especially for me, is I can go to someone and be like, hey, let's say you were a Reiki practitioner. I'd be like, Penny, can you give me Reiki? And you're like, yeah, sure. You're advertising something. You're like, I'm going to do Reiki. I'm like, all right, cool. And so I'll come to you and say Reiki. But I'm like, in the end of it, I'm like, I still don't really know you.
Yeah.
And I'm letting you into my personal space.
Sure.
Because Reiki is allowing people into your personal space. And so for that reason, when I give Reiki to people, I want people to know who I am.
Okay.
And they want to feel comfortable with them.
Sure.
And also if I asked you a favor and some person off the street asked you the same favor, you're more likely to help me with it.
Sure.
And do a better job with it than the stranger off the street.
Sure.
So for me, when I do Reiki for people, I want to build that personal connection.
Okay.
And for me, I think that that's super helpful and it's helpful for them.
Yeah.
Because then they can oh, I feel comfortable putting my baggage down. It's not just a transactional thing. It's, so they come to me and they had 100 pounds of baggage and we're going to put down 20.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So now it's only 80 pounds, which is still a lot. But there is, I guess, the next time when we do when I do the Reiki, because it's 3 sessions, now we're going to get rid of 50 pounds.
Okay.
50 pounds of baggage, right?
So the first time it's 100?
Let's say you come with 100 pounds of baggage.
Right.
So then you let down 20 from talking.
Okay.
Just as an example. So you let down 20 pounds from talking, so now there's 80 pounds.
Sure.
And then the Reiki, lifts off 50 pounds.
Sure.
And then, when you, do a bunch of construction and excavation, there's a whole bunch of shit that, flies in the air.
Yeah.
And, settles back down. So if I take off 50 from 80, that's 30. Well, the next day when you come back, I take off another 20.
Yeah.
And then the last day, because we've done so much work already, we take off the other 10. And then people end up leaving and they're like, I feel so light.
Yeah.
And but it's easier because now you've built that connection with me and you feel safe.
Yeah.
And my inner child is very polite. Mm-hmm. She's so sweet. But she'll do things, but the first time, another thing, so when it comes to giving Reiki to people, before I give them Reiki, I'll ask them, Jennifer Beckham, is it okay if I give you Reiki? And you'll say, yeah, it's fine. And then I ask you, but I ask 3 times. Okay. Because in my mind, and for my inner child, the first time my inner child hears it, the first time she hears it, the second time she listens, and the third time she really understands. Okay. And so when I ask you, it's hey, my favorite thing and my inner child's favorite thing is ice cream. So it's hey, Esther, do you want to go get ice cream? I'm like, yes. Esther, do you want to go get ice cream? Yes. And then third time, Esther, do you really want to go get ice cream? Like, yes, give me the ice cream. So it's kind of like enthusiastic consent.
Okay.
And so I have found when I've given Reiki to people, like I gave Reiki to this guy back in August.
Uh-huh.
And at the end, I call him back. Because I call him back. I'm like, Jenny, come back.
Yeah.
And I was like calling his name. I'm like, Alex. And I was sitting there for a few minutes waiting. And he finally came back and he opened his eyes and he was like, what happened?
Wow.
And I was like, you like disappeared, or I don't know where you went, but like you weren't here and now you're back.
He was cruising.
And he said that he's had many Reiki sessions before and he's never disappeared.
Oh, wow.
But I think it's because I made him feel comfortable.
Yeah, he felt safe.
You like when people feel safe, they're like, oh, I can like go to sleep or take a nap or whatever it is. And so that's what I think is different from the way that I give Reiki versus the way that other people give Reiki. And there's no wrong way, of course. And everyone has their own style.
Okay.
But that to me is like my style. And then I just follow up with the people. And I start every Reiki session with a hug.
Oh, so funny that you mentioned that. So the last time I got a hug was today, right before I came here. I gave my parents a hug. I was like, I'm leaving. Do you want a hug? Yes. I give them a hug in the house. Then I like fill up my water before I leave the house, and then we hug again. And then I pack up my bike and they're like, okay, bye. And then we get another hug.
That's like, I think that sounds like.
It's really nice.
But that sounds like you got 3 or 4.
I got 3 or 4 hugs. Like, I mean, I got 6 hugs. They each got 3. You know, like, because I got a hug from each of them.
Ah. So you're doing pretty good on the hug.
I am. Go me.
Yeah, go you. I'm like jealous.
But yeah, that.
And so, like, I even thought about doing, like, because some people are like, you're a really good cuddler. And
Ah.
I thought about, like, offering, like, Reiki hugs. Like, full body hugs.
Interesting.
But then people think I'm, like, an escort. So that's that doesn't really work out as well as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, plus, they have pillows. They can.
Yeah, but pillows aren't the same.
That's true. That's true.
Like, pillows aren't warm and, like, you know, like, cuddly and cozy. They're just, like, pillows.
That's true.
I've tried a bunch of them, but like, and they cost a lot of money for the good ones.
Do they? Okay.
Because I think like the full body, like, I don't know. And then and then there's like the ones that are like, oh, like the girlfriend, and that's like creepy.
Yeah.
They're like the blow up dolls, and I'm like,
oh
no,
yeah.
I'm gonna pass on that. Hard pass on that. I applied for a job last week. Okay. No, I applied for a job like when I came back from New York.
Okay.
And I got word on Thursday that they decided to promote from within.
Okay.
Which I was like, okay, that's fine. The interesting thing was that like on Tuesday night or Wednesday, I think it was Tuesday. Oh, it was Tuesday night. When I met this guy, I was like so impressed by him.
Okay.
Because I'm like, this guy is the boss I always dreamed of having.
Oh, wow.
And not only that, he's the boss I always dream of being.
Okay.
So if you're going to learn, if you want to be the boss, if he's the boss you dream of being,
yeah,
who better to learn how to be a boss from?
Right.
So I had a dream on Tuesday night that he and it wasn't him, but it was supposed to be him, I guess. And he was like, yeah, you're my favorite candidate.
Oh.
And we're like, apparently I'm like, in my dream, I guess I'm back there for the second interview.
Okay.
And he's like, you were my favorite candidate. He's like, the other people are here now. Do you want to eavesdrop to them? And I was like, no, it's okay. But in my dream, I had a dream that I was like, hey, instead of the 80, I'll come work for you for 55.
Oh.
Which I thought was interesting. And then on Thursday, I found out that I didn't get the position.
Okay.
And I was like kind of bummed about it. And I was bummed about it, not just because I didn't get the position, but also because I'm like, I really want to work for this guy. Like,
yeah.
I was like, damn, I want to work for this guy for free. Not really, but like,
yeah.
You know, like he was so inspiring and amazing. And I was like, yeah, that's the kind of person you want to be around.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, we decided to promote from within. And I went back to him and I emailed him like, so, which means that the position is not the person you promoted, that means that person's position is now open.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to put me in I forget what exactly I said, but like
interview you for that position.
Yeah, interview me for that. Would you be willing to consider me for that position instead?
Yeah.
Which I haven't heard anything back from that. I'm just waiting to hear. But, but the me of 2019 would have never done that. And that's the thing that I've done in the past couple of years is in 2019. Oh, that's where I can go. In 2019, I had this 2019 is kind of like when my spiritual awakening kind of started.
Ooh, love. Okay.
And it was kind of got into that, and then I was at home one day. Yeah, I was at home, and I was listening to this Lisa Nichols speech on YouTube.
Okay.
And I have listened to this speech several times.
Okay.
And until this last time, every time I listened to it, I ugly cried. And it was getting uglier and uglier and uglier. Like I was going through so much more like stuff. Yeah. And in this visualization, they talk about you're a public speaker.
Oh.
And and so this last time when I listened to it, I was like going into it, and I remember thinking, how is this going to get uglier? How is this ugly cry going to get even uglier than it's been? And in the speech, they talk about, in this visualization, you're like on the way to the stadium. So we're in Austin. So you're on the way to like Tully Stadium. I guess that's where the Longhorns play. Sure. Yeah. And you're on the way, and there's like traffic, but then they're like, oh, you don't need to be here for an hour. And you're like, okay, cool. So then you're like, I know, I'm going to go home. And you go home, and you press the thing to your, press the code to your gate, and the gates swing open. And it's like a mile drive up to your house, because that's how far you've made it. Like, okay, it's a mile from the gate to your house. Okay, that's like a far
That's a lot of property.
That's a lot of property, right?
Yeah.
That's I made it. And you get there, and the person who cooks the best in your family is there. Okay. And your whole family is there, and blah 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 blah, and they're all like there. And then all those times I would listen to this before, I was always crying. Okay. I was like, oh my God, I was crying because I'm like, oh my God, they've, And then this when I listened to it, I was like, wait a second. Why are they here?
Your family?
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
Because, let's say in 5 years from now, right? Okay. Yeah, 4 to 5 years from now, I'm a paid public speaker and I'm speaking at Tully Stadium. Okay. Where are you, Jenny?
In 5 years?
Mm-hmm. No, if you and I are still friends. Uh-huh. So in 4 to 5 years from now, when
I'd be at the stadium.
Exactly.
Backstage, right?
Yes. You would be at the stadium backstage saying yes, you did it, right?
What do you need to get,
Yeah. or you're in the car with me going to the stadium.
Yeah. Okay. I hear what you're saying. Okay.
So then I listen to this visualization and I'm like, all these people are at my house. Yeah. Why aren't they at the stadium? I did all this hard work, and these motherfuckers are at my house eating my food. Yeah. And they're not at the thing to support me. Yeah. Okay. And that really changed it for me. Okay. Because I was like, oh. Huh. And I don't ugly cry anymore, because now I'm like, I'm the one who did the work. And they're like, I was like, I don't have to do this thing to be even in this visualization, and I'm sure her intention was good, right? But when I heard it this time, I was like, if they really did support me, they'd be at the stadium, or they'd be at the car in front of me. They wouldn't be at my house partying, chilling, just hanging out, and oh, Esther, we'll see you when you get home. Yeah, bitch. It's so kind of rude, Yeah. And I was like, and finally I was like, oh, okay, cool. I let it go. If you guys don't want to be there for you guys, to me, that was you wouldn't be there for me now, and you wouldn't be for me even then. So I no longer, I'm whatever I do is only going to be for me now. Yeah. I don't really care if you guys don't like it or whatever. I'm like, okay. So that's when I kind of was like, I'm gonna let it go.
Oh, that was some of that freedom you were talking about. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And so so when I moved away from Texas in 2019, I was like, I'm going to move to Massachusetts. And this was like the year before coronavirus. So,
Right.
Everybody had all these 2020 is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It's going to be the best year of our lives.
That's right. Yeah.
Like Taco Tuesdays actually on Cinco de Mayo. There's all these things that were in 2020 that were going to be so great. And then and I imagined that when I left that I was going to have I was like, okay, and I'm never going to come back to Texas in August because it's too hot.
Right.
And I'm only going to come back in October when the weather's beautiful. And I'm going to, next time if I come back to Texas, my life is going to be like this and blah, 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 blah.
Yep. Yep.
And then Rona happened.
Yeah.
But when I ended up moving back, I actually came to Austin in August. Because weirdly, I missed the heat, which sounds so strange to people, but I missed the heat.
Yeah.
And then I ended up moving. I think because I was at a retreat, and the retreat was from Thursday through Sunday. I flew back on Sunday, and I moved back to Texas on Wednesday.
Okay.
And I had so little money, which was the opposite of what I thought was going to happen when I came back to Texas.
Sure.
I was like, I'm going to be loaded and blah, 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 and I'll be able to whatever. But I had to ask I had to ask somebody for gas money.
Wow.
That's how little I had. And then
Okay.
all that. And it made me think about it. And I know from the outset that somebody would look at my life and be like, you're ridiculous. You are my mom or somebody would be like, so you went to Austin to have a stranger that you've never met before paint your picture. Why not? Right? I saw her ad, I talked to her on the phone, she liked me, so I got a good vibe from her. Why wouldn't I? It's something that I wouldn't. But the 2019 version of me would have never done this.
Okay.
Because the 2019 version of me hated the camera. I was so camera shy. My best friend would only get 3 pictures of me a year. My birthday in November, Christmas, and her birthday in January.
Wow.
And the rest of the year was don't even.
Okay.
Don't even bother trying to get. I'm really good at flipping my head. So lots of people have pictures of the back of my head, side of me, back of me, but not very few of the front of me. Because I was team Android because I was people don't want to FaceTime with me. Nobody needs to see this face. It's just all these thoughts,
Wow, that's so wild. When I saw you today, I was wow, she is so gorgeous. Her picture does not do her justice.
That's so sweet.
I was wow, I was shocked. Just physically, I was wow, so gorgeous.
Oh, that's so kind.
So it's wild to hear that you had those kind of feelings about yourself.
So the thing is and this is and I kind of talk about this in my book a little bit, is that Asian culture,
Yeah.
that's the way it is.
Okay.
So Asian people will tell you and I'll also I'll be my mom has bad body image issues, but
Okay.
It's Asian culture. Korean people, Korea is the #1 country in the world from plastic surgery.
Wow.
People are getting plastic surgery all the time. To give my family credit, I'll
Yeah.
give them some credit. They never said I was ugly.
Okay.
However, they did tell me that I would be a lot prettier if
Oh. Okay.
I would get plastic surgery on my eyes, my nose, my lips, my cheek.
Wow.
And if I lost 20 or 30 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, to their credit, they never said I was ugly. They just said I'd be a lot prettier if. And so I was always so when I was growing up, I got those messages.
Yeah.
And so I said to myself, okay, well, if I'm going to be ugly, at least let me develop the other parts of my personality.
Sure.
So then that way, if I'm going to be ugly, then at least I can be a pleasure to talk to.
Yes.
And then people are like, but you're not ugly. I was like, yeah, that's kind of like an added bonus. And also, when people are like, are you pretty? And I was like, that depends on who's looking at you.
Yeah.
Because, like, some people could look at you and be like, she's really pretty. And some other
Right.
people could look at you and be like, I mean, she's okay.
Yeah.
Or, like, you know, whatever it is that, like, whatever their standard of beauty is,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And so people always just say, when people ask me now, they're like, so do you think you're pretty? And I'm like, it depends on who's looking at me. It's kind of like what I say now. However, I will tell you, like, back in, like, 2009,
Yeah.
I remember I lived with my roommate, my best friend at the time, and she put a mirror above the kitchen sink. And I remember looking at that mirror some days. And some days I'd look at it and be like, I grew up to be a pretty girl, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And then some days I'd look at it and be like, I would not F me.
I feel like that's pretty human, though. Those reactions.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, people are like, what? And I was like, no, I would not F me at all. If you're like, but, and I'm like, hey, look, it's just, you know, how I felt. But, like,
Yeah.
even, like, I went through a breakup, like, we broke up in 2013, like 10 years ago. It was crazy. And at the time, I weighed 180 pounds.
Okay.
Which to me was bad because I'd given birth to a son like 13 years before that.
Wow.
And so when I gave birth to him, I was 175 pounds.
Wow.
So I was 5 pounds more than when I gave birth.
Okay.
So I was like, oh my God, I'm like a total whale.
Okay.
And he and I broke up, and then, you know, I found out the world's most effective diet. Heartbreak and misery.
Okay.
It works really well.
Okay.
It's just really sad. But, like, you know, I lost 48 pounds.
Wow.
So I went down to like 132 pounds.
Wow.
And people were like, that sucks. And I'm like, look, I could have gone the other way. I could have gained 48
Yeah.
pounds. So I'd rather lose 48 pounds.
Yeah.
But then if you're like, and this is just my mindset at the time. If I went from 180 to 228, I'd be like, now nobody really wants me. Now, like,
Sure.
you know, so I was
Sure.
like, okay, so at least I went down. And I was then to the point where, like, my brother was like, asked me if I was on crack because I was like so skinny.
Wow.
But, like, me being me, like, I saw my brother one day and he's like, are you smoking crack? And I was like, no. And the next day he sees me again. He's like, are you sure you're not smoking
Oh
crack?
my.
He's like, you're so skinny.
Yeah.
And, like, I was smoking. So he's like, you have crack teeth.
Oh.
And so I was smoking cigarettes. I was not smoking crack.
Right.
And I was like, yes, I am smoking crack. And when I'm done hitting the pipe, I put it down and I do a line of heroin. And he was like, not funny. And I was like,
Wow.
what do you want me to say? I was like, I can't afford food. I'm miserable. You know,
Yeah.
this is just my life. And so this is why I look so skinny. But, like, I remember going to dinner with my parents. And I remember I went to dinner and, like, my sister was like, oh my God, you were so skinny. Like, I could see your bones.
Oh my goodness.
So this is like the 30 pounds of me gained. I gained
Okay.
30 pounds version.
Okay.
Maybe like 30, 35. I don't know how much I weigh because I'm going to check in a minute.
Okay.
But, like, I had 4 ribs. I could almost see number 5. Like, that's kind of like how skinny I was.
Wow.
But I remember I went to dinner and my mom looked at me and she was kind of like, and not a single peep. Versus when I was heavier, it was like, you know, you could really stand and lose some weight.
Wow.
And so I was like, I'm still not skinny enough in my head.
Wow.
Which is, like,
wow.
weird. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, oh, okay, if I was skinny enough, then I should say something. Like, maybe you need to eat. Or, like, hey. But it was just, like, an observation.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, so I'm still not skinny enough. And my friends, like, I had a friend of mine, she was like,
Well, maybe she thought you were actually skinny enough, and so she didn't want to comment about you, like that she didn't say anything with a positive reaction.
you'd have to know. My mom didn't know.
Okay.
That. I like that you give her credit, though. But she's like, that's the way she kind of looks at me, like I'm a bug, and she can't decide if she wants to squish me or, like, put me outside.
No.
Even still, so I'm like, whatever.
Oh.
But, like, it's just interesting. So, like, all of that, like, growth and everything that I went into.
Yeah.
So when I came back from Massachusetts, I'm like, okay, I, like, literally didn't have any money. My car got repoed, and I'm like, okay. But I remember my car got repoed, and my friend was like, he didn't believe me that my car got repoed. I was like, my car got repoed. He's like,
Wow.
he's like, you took it so well. And I was like, I knew I hadn't been paying. He's like, I would have been so mad. I'm like, well, I mean, it's not like I didn't know that I hadn't been paying. I knew, and I knew it was only a matter of time.
Right.
And I had actually asked to be released from the things that no longer served me.
Okay.
And it left. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, at least it got repo. And people were like, why is that a plus? And I'm like, well, if it got stolen, then I would have had to pay the deductible that I don't have anyway.
Sure.
And then it would have been repoed anyway.
Yeah.
So it's actually cheaper. Cheaper for the car to get repoed. And I was like, okay. It was what it was. And I was like, all right. And just like, when I came back though from Mass, like, I came back with a confidence that I didn't have when I left.
That's great.
And I couldn't have bought it. I literally could not have bought it because I didn't have the money for it now that I think about it. But like all the things that I went through and like coming into like to go from like don't look at my face, no pictures, to being a Reiki practitioner. And now I put out a video every single day.
Wow.
Of a Reiki video set to music, which is basically me dancing on screen. Like dancing on screen, sitting down and like moving my hands around and like doing Reiki for the collective. Like, I wouldn't have done that before.
Yeah.
And then this morning, someone commented on my Instagram to the post that I had made. And he said, "You need Jesus." Period. And I commented back to him. And I said, "Thank you for the comment. It's not your business to know what my relationship is with Jesus. However, he is my savior, period. And maybe you need to be a little less judgmental. Blessings to you." But I would not have said that before.
Okay.
I would have like ignored the comment or deleted it. And now I'm just like, people like that, like the judgmental ones.
Yeah.
I grew up with judgmental Christians and I know exactly what that's like. Those are the people that turn people away. But like,
yeah,
love actually is the greatest power of all. And so when I make my videos, I ask for unconditional love to come in.
Okay.
And I send it out to people because if you love, like, you know, it's like they say, like, love can make you move mountains.
Yeah.
And if you have love, like, you could have like the most amazing relationship with someone and like live in a shithole and be happy about it. Because you're like, I don't know, you don't really need like, nobody wants to live in a shithole. If they do, more power to you. But like most people don't, but you're more willing to put up with it.
Yeah. Because
you have that love and you're like, you know, there's people that are like, oh, I don't have love, but I have lots of money. And I'm like, okay, well, they're still not very happy either. And I'm like, but you can, with love, you can be happy with less. Everyone's happier with more. I get that. I want more too. Okay. So like, I'm not saying be poor. I'm saying like, but having that love and that someone that supports you in the ways that you weren't supported when you were as a child growing up, then you're like, oh, what can I do? And then you start going and you're building ideas because you know that that person believes in you and supports you no matter what you do.
That's right. That's right.
And so like having that is actually priceless. So that's why like people are like, oh, what's the greatest power of all? I'm like, love. Like they wrote a million songs about it. They make movies about it, you know?
Right.
And so, but now, you know, I just like go to people and I'm like, hey, you know, this is what it is. And I make that.
Yes.
But like having that confidence when I applied to that job that I got didn't get declined from, I got redirected. The job posting said, I need, because it was on Craigslist.
Okay.
And so the job posting was looking for an executive assistant to the CEO. And they said, I need you to tell me a joke. I need you to tell me what day it is. And I need you to tell me the weather.
Okay.
And at the end of the post, it said, tell me another joke and tell me how much you want to get paid.
Okay.
So that way I know that, you know, you followed the directions and that you read through to the end of the post. And if you don't follow these directions, your resume will be deleted.
Right.
And in the beginning, it says like, hey, are you a badass that's not afraid to speak up? And things like this. So I was like, all right. So in the subject line, I wrote badass reporting for duty.
Yeah.
And then the first line in the email, I wrote, so you said you want someone who's not afraid to speak up. Step 1, check. And then I was like, okay, I need a joke. And this is like one of the best jokes that I know.
Okay.
So Ethan and his parents were involved in a custody battle. And so they went to the court. And so the judge was trying to figure out who Ethan was going to live with.
Okay.
And you know, the judge was like, oh, you know, maybe your mom or dad. And Ethan speaks up and goes, I don't want to live with either one of my parents.
Okay.
Because they beat me. And I don't like that. And
Okay.
the judge was like, okay, well, then you go live with your aunt. And Ethan's like, nah, I don't really want to live with my aunt either. She beats me twice as hard as my parents do combined.
Oh my.
And I don't want to live with her.
This poor kid.
This poor kid, right?
Yeah.
And then the judge is like, okay, well then go live with your grandparents. And Ethan's like, I do not want to go live with my grandparents. They beat me too. It's a family thing.
Okay.
So then the judge and the jury are like,
Shoot,
what are we going to do? And then finally they're like, you know what? We got it. Ethan, we'll let you decide who you're going to give your custody to.
Okay.
So then, you know, and Ethan says, I'm going to give my custody to the Dallas Cowboys because they can't beat anyone.
Ah, shoot.
But I told this joke to this guy because it's like, you know, because you're like, oh no, you're like, oh, and then it's like, but then get to the punchline and everyone's like. And that's what I say is that everybody is good at something.
That's right.
But most time, the good thing that everyone is good at, that they're good at, they forget that they're good at because they're just so used to it. Because they're just like, yeah, I do it. Like, I flip pancakes with one hand. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Do you eat tacos?
We live in Texas. Who doesn't eat tacos?
You'd be surprised. And since you do eat tacos, do you have a favorite place to get tacos?
So I lived in Houston, and I used to get tacos from Taqueria del Sol.
Okay.
And there's another taqueria called La Bala.
Okay.
And they have tacos, and they have a location near they have a second location near my parents' house in Katy.
Okay.
And I went there, and I love nopales tacos, which are like cactus tacos, and it's like $4.44, which tells you that the angel's around. And I went there, and I said, I'd like nopales tacos, please. And she goes, regular or spicy? And I was like, be still my heart. Like, you just asked me, like, I was like, I've never been asked this question before.
When you are feeling blue, what is something you do to help yourself feel better?
And go get ice cream.
Okay.
Oh, because I used to be lactose intolerant too before I moved away.
And now you're not?
I'm not.
Woo! Wow, amazing!
And happiness is healing. Like my favorite pizza is chicken bacon ranch. I used to eat it 5 days a week.
Wow. Is that from Domino's?
No, there was like a pizza place that was in Massachusetts in Norwood, which was down the street from where I sold cars at CarMax.
Okay.
And it was called Stash's Pizza, and I found that place. And a slice of chicken bacon ranch is probably half the size of this pillow. It's humongous. But I would eat that sometimes, and I would just be like, all right. And I'd walk in, and they'd just, they're like, pizza today? And I was like, yeah. They're just put it in the oven. And that's all I would eat. And they're like, what do you eat? And I'm like, chicken bacon ranch. They're like, that's all? I'm like, it's a complete meal. It is a carb. It is dairy. It's got chicken and bacon. It's got protein. It's got tomatoes on there, so it's a vegetable. It's got ranch, so it's got ranch and cheese, so it's got dairy. I'm like, it's a completely balanced meal, you know?
Yeah, it is. That's amazing.
And so, but like, I was doing that 5 days a week, so
wow.
I'm like, that's the best meal prep. I'm like, you don't even have to meal prep. It's cheaper than buying groceries. Right? And like, go to the store and like, get a fountain soda.
Okay, so it's done.
Good?
Yeah. Are you ready to see it?
Yeah.
And
It looks very colorful from like
when I dropped it.
I think that's so cool.
Thank you.
It's beautiful. Like, I had someone that like they've done my aura like thing, and they said that my aura has a lot of orange in it
Oh, wild.
and yellow, and they're like, they must fight because like orange and yellow is like contrasting. But I like that, like there's like, because I love the green, and I like how you put on all the colors in there.
Oh, thank you.
It's like, I think like the more that I would look at it, the more that I would see from it over and over. But it's beautiful.
Thank you. Well, you're beautiful.
Oh,
obviously.
thank you.
Yeah.
That is so pretty.
Thanks. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
Thank
You knew you were gonna get one.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for watching. And I'm going to go turn it off.